Wednesdays are for resilience, a gentle reminder that even in the middle of the week, we carry the strength to rise, to bloom, and to lead. Ooh, poetic fire. For example, it's the morning after the rain, but the ladies and I are here vibrant as always and ready for a good show. Now, today we're tackling one of the most confounding contradictions in Nigeria's education landscape. On one hand, lecturers are leaving the country in droves, searching for better pay, better research opportunities, and frankly, better respect. On the other hand, now one university, for example, has lost over 1,000 lecturers to JAPA in 5 years. But yet, on the other hand, the federal government has approved 67 new tertiary institutions in under a year. How do we make sense of this? How do we reconcile the loss of talent with the race to build more schools? And what kind of education system are we really building? One that works for students and teachers, or one that looks good on paper? Today, we ask the tough questions. Can expansion solve a crisis rooted in neglect? And who is truly benefiting from this education policy? That discussion comes up in just a bit, but first, some comments from the governor of Niger State, Umar and Mohammed Bago, has stirred some controversy. He has issued a set of directives as part of steps he has taken in response to a sharp rise in violence across Niger State. In recent months, the state has been frequently attacked by armed bandits and insurgent groups in rural areas, including kidnappings, raids on villages, and killings. But I cannot just tell you this. We need to hear from the governor himself.
Anybody that you find with barber or dreadlock, arrest him, barb his hair, and find him. Nobody should carry any kind of hair court again inside Mina. I have given you marching order, the security agencies. Anybody you find with a weapon, deal with him as an armed robber. So for parents, warn your children, warn your wards. From this moment, it's 100% fire for fire. Any attempt to harass any security officer is an attempt to harass the government of Niger State. We are going to come with the full force of power of the government and descend on you. And any house found harboring criminals should be demolished. Urban Development Board, bring it down. NDLA, ADC, and other agencies clamp down on drug dealers. 0% tolerance in Niger State. And Niger State is not for useless people. If you can't take care of your children, we'll take care of them for you.
All right, so the governor was speaking during a security meeting in Minna when he issued a directive targeting individuals with dreadlocks and those found carrying weapons. Governor Bago instructed security agencies to arrest anyone wearing dreadlocks, shave their heads, and fine them. He associated such appearances with, in quote, rascality, and emphasized a zero-tolerance stance towards behaviors he perceives as contributing to insecurity in the state. He also ordered that anyone found in possession of any weapon, including knives and stakes, should be treated as an armed robber. And he further stated that if such individuals are killed, their parents must pay for the bullets before the corpse is released. Bago also announced additional measures, including a dusk-to-dawn curfew across Minna and a ban on Okadas and Kekes from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. He also warned that any house found harboring criminals would be demolished and called on parents to caution their children, declaring a fire-for-fire approach to combating crime. Okay, before the ladies chew on this, let's take some reactions.
Is that the issue? People are creating self-driving cars, robots to handle our daily needs, and making it easier for money to be transacted from one part of the world to another. A Nigerian governor is worried about dreadlocks. Let's focus, people. Is this what we need now for the masses already suffering? Part of why dreadlocks have become popular is that no one has money to even cut hair. This is a human rights violation. Same applies to beard gang. No mercy. Shave it off and fine them. I don't know. I want to ask if that's a sarcasm. This is called decency, not bias. Principle of an environment govern the behavior of the people. You will see someone dressed like a hoodlum, and see it as normal, which is not. And I quickly want to note that this feels somehow that as Nigerians, a black country in Africa, that we are basically criminalizing dada, which some people are naturally born with.
Exactly.
We're criminalizing it.
I was going to go there.
and it seems an extension, because this is exactly what young Lagosians, young Nigerians have complained about, which is profiling.
Yeah,
You're
profiling.
profiling anybody that has dada, that has dreadlocks, and you're equating it to being a criminal, to being a rascal. That is not it. It is not a direct equivalency. And I understand, because Niger State, like many of the states in that region, are facing a lot of security issues.
Yeah.
You can't forget what's happening in Plateau, what's happening in Benue. But are the minutia of his directives, when you break them all down, do they work? So you're telling me somebody's walking down the streets and wearing dada and automatically they're a criminal? Governor, it doesn't work like that.
Do you know the harassment that the youth of Niger State, they are opening up them up to? That means no matter, I know a lot of executives that are in advertising who wear
In the creative
dreadlocks.
industry.
In the creative industry, who wear dreadlocks. I'm sure they have artists in Niger State too, and they cannot tell me it doesn't matter, because music alone is giving us global relevance. So if you're saying that youth from Niger State cannot be artists, cannot be creative,
They have to move on.
I agree if you want to clamp down on maybe the curfew, if you are found harboring criminals, but all these things we have to be careful, because sometimes when you give these marching orders, the Yoruba will say, they'll say, go no, go. Come.
They don't hear come.
That means sometimes they'll just act irrationally, and that might cause more chaos within the state. I'm not saying that they cannot clamp down. I agree with some of the things he said. Oh, fine. If they've investigated and they find out that you're harboring criminals, I don't know if you can just bring down the house, but
Like that without an order?
like that without an order, I don't know. Because somebody might be leaving your house and you might actually not know
What they do.
They might be bankers during the day and hoodlums at night. You never know how the combination of these things work in these times.
There's a better way to do this. And I think, first of all, Catherine, I think he's reacting emotionally. You're reacting because, I mean, I know, we all know you want to bring sanity to your state and bring normalcy to what's going on in your state. But this is just a far cry. What do you mean by, because someone is wearing dreadlocks, so you naturally throw them into the bandwagon of, oh, these are unserious people and these are people who have a leaning towards banditry? No. We mentioned, Lola and Tolu mentioned it, there's some children that are naturally born with dada. And the parents don't cut the hair because in some climes they take it, it's, I don't know, you don't
Sign of some, yes.
There are religious tenants that actually see them as super kids, like Samson.
Exactly. So what happens is that we just take that child and shave the hair because there's a directive, a matching order that says, okay, it's almost as if you're saying shoot on sight. So just go fire for fire.
So Nigerians can be very rash with their actions and very irrational with their reactions, because I'm seeing the comments and I'm like, the same people that started fighting NSAS because it started off as
Police profiling, yes.
are the same people who are now saying, oh, cut it off. And by the way, who says the criminals hide the weapons inside their hair? They hear this thing and they cut it off. You are now
That's the next point I wanted to make sure.
Exactly,
The
they
governor
cut
already
it off.
said, they just barb it off. So now they look, quote unquote, like
Normal.
according to the governor, normal
And
people.
you're
Meanwhile, they're
chasing
not.
dreadlock up and down.
And that's not it. So for me, if you're chasing, there are more deliberate, intentional ways of fighting crime in your state. Do you know there's a way you just put people out on the street? You don't even know, infiltrate this. You need to know what and how they move. That way, you know how to checkmate them at their game. It's not a matter of saying, no, we move, we're not taking nonsense again, we have zero tolerance for this, and we're going to cut anybody's hair who is known.
We should focus on the MO of the criminals, not what they look like. Exactly. That's where we're getting it.
And I think there's more to it. So part of it talking about anybody found in possession of a weapon, including knives and sticks, should be treated as an armed robber. To a point, I understand that. But also, don't forget, there's been a recent call from a lot of from a lot of well-known or highly placed Nigerians about the need for people to self-arm themselves and defend themselves, because state governments and federal governments unfortunately have been failing them in that regard. So the automatic correlation that the governor's statement is drawing and this sort of blanket approval it's giving for security agencies scares me. We've been there before, we've done it, we can write books on it, and it never ends well for the average Nigerian. Then he talked about if an individual is found to be guilty, the parents must pay for the bullets before the corpse is released. It's a court that can determine if somebody is guilty. It's a court that can determine if somebody is an armed robber, if enough evidence has been brought. Let's not give Nigerian security agencies who already
a blanket order
who already act extrajudicially in many instances further impetus to be able to do that. And so I understand where he's coming from, the ban on the kekes, the houses harboring criminals. Again, even that, I think that should come with a court order as well, proof of it before you just
arrest the people in there, but I don't know if you can just demolish.
And that's why
except maybe you found maybe dead people. There are so many other things to this.
I think there's more intentional ways to doing things, and of course, but then again, when you have earworms in your ear as governor, sometimes it can be confusing. Still, the onus is on you to sit on the information that's been whispered to you or told to you in confidence or in meetings, and then come up with plans from the drawing board. You don't just come up. There are so many intentional ways to deal with what's going through. And this is just Niger State. It doesn't mean that other states don't have the one that's doing them.
But you already said it. I actually think maybe just reacting emotionally. You know, maybe something just happened within the state that really triggered them, and they're just looking for how to just clamp down on everything very quickly. But, you know, we have to put some thoughts into this so that it just doesn't ricochet in his face and bounce back and hit him harder than he expected. Imagine if there is now chaos and mass killings. What would he say? But anyway, when we come back, we're diving into a critical conversation, one that cuts to the heart of Nigeria's future. Lecturers are leaving universities are multiplying, and students are stuck in the middle. Is this progress or a policy failure in slow motion? Mojeed Alabi, team lead and editor-in-chief for development reporting, joins us after the break. Stay tuned because the conversation will be very interesting.
Nigeria's higher education sector is on the brink, caught between the ambition of expansion and the reality of decay. Over the past 5 years, the University of Lagos, one of the country's premier public universities, has lost 1,800 academic staff to Japa. That's nearly 50% of its lecturers gone. Now, many left for better pay, improved working conditions, and academic respect abroad. Yet, despite these alarming figures, the federal government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the creation of around 67 new tertiary institutions in less than a year, adding to an already strained system. This contradiction has sparked serious questions. What is the plan for staffing these new institutions? Are we building shells of schools with no educators to fill them? What does this mean for the quality of education in Nigeria, and what are the long-term implications for the country's development? On today's episode of Jasiri, we're unpacking the state of higher education in Nigeria, what's driving the mass exodus of lecturers, and whether the government's strategy of expansion is visionary or short-sighted. Joining us is Mojeed Alabi. He's the team lead and editor-in-chief for Dev Reporting. Mojeed, welcome back to Jasiri. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so very quickly, I just want us to get into it. Now, the University of Lagos lost 1,800 lecturers in 5 years. That's a whopping sum. It's a staggering number. And before we get into the questions, I know that some people want to know how you were able to figure out the numbers, how you were able to get the statistics.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. I know the university is also still currently struggling to actually get its data together. We had a conversation with the Vice Chancellor, who, because she's troubled, she's disturbed, and was able to give us the figure. Though people are saying no, you know, the problem is that if you look at the story, it's saying it keeps changing, it keeps changing, it keeps changing. But what is changing is that people are going, not people are coming in.
Yeah.
And that is why they are supporting it with adjunct lecturers. Part of what we came to do with dev reporting is to actually tackle certain developmental issues that are not, they don't really come up most times. We focus more on probably politics, insecurity. They are very important, but the key issues of development have been relegated to the background because they don't actually, people don't really pick interest in them. So that's how we got the statistics, and we try as much as possible to look deep down. In the report, we look into what others have actually done to give us some kind of ideas of how many lecturers do we even have in the country. And we were able to get statistics of what we had when we had a single university in 1940, when we had about 20-something in 1980, how we got to the level of having more than 200. In fact, we cannot tell the exact figure of the universities that we have in Nigeria today. And not just universities, every sector, every tertiary institution, just mushrooming, they're just growing every now and then, proliferation, and that's why we call them constituency projects now. Every senator, every rep member want to have a university in there. So that's the situation. But that's just a university. Even if it is not up to 1,800, I can tell you, and we'll only mention the academic staff. I know of even principal officers, people within the administrative level who left.
Okay, so let me ask you, now we've established that, but quickly, off the cuff, can I ask a personal question? Why haven't you jackpot?
Oh, you know, a whole lot of us don't really understand. Like, when we published this report, a lot of people actually came back to us to say, look, many people, out of frustration, don't even want to know what they are going to see out there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give a personal example. In 2022, I was in Germany, and I was in Frankfurt, and I entered a mall. I wanted to, and you know, over there, it is actually machines, you do everything yourself. And I saw some items I picked, so I went back to my hotel and I realized that I needed more. So when I got back to the hotel, I couldn't find the exact ones again, and I know I left them there before. So I was looking for somebody to give me, to tell me where I could pick them. I just saw one guy coming from the back door, and he was using his hand with nylon, sweeping the floor, probably packing things. And immediately I said, oh, please, could you direct me where I could pick this? And the kind of the intonation I had in response, I knew this is a Nigerian. And I just said, oh, what? He said, oh, not here. Oh, I said, okay, are you from Africa? He said, I'm from Nigeria. I said, where? He said, I'm from Edo now. I said, oh, hi, brother. What he was doing in that place, apparently he would not have done it in Nigeria.
Never. Yes.
So a whole lot of people even prefer to go out there. And many of the lecturers who left, what are they doing there? Are they lecturing? Many of them are Uber drivers. Many of them are cleaners. Many of them are attendants. Many of them even drop their work they are doing. They now go into health sector to be able to attend to their old people. So forgetting the fact, but it is because of frustration. When you look at it, it is not just about the money you earn. Many of them don't even have offices. If you go to universities, many of them don't even have offices. And probably we go into the conditions that push a lot of people out of the system. Not because they just want to hit alone. But the dignity of that labor is not there. A whole lot of them are pushed into so many things. He knows that the person that is out there, he will come back to Nigeria, put one big long chain on his neck with a logo of Benz, and he becomes a big man, and he begins to roll, and people say, oh, this guy. Not knowing that what he's doing there is even much more belittling than what he's doing in Nigeria. But that is the thing.
You know, okay, I think you have a follow-up question. I know that we might be talking about this thing on a surface level, but it has deeper implications and repercussions for our students and even universities as a whole. What does this academic brain drain mean for Nigerian students? Because before, they'll tell you that school passed through you, but you didn't pass through the school. Because this thing we can look at in terms of class sizes, we can look at it in quality of teaching and timely graduation. Those are very key things that is in a student's life. You see that the condition of study. It's even hard for students, not to talk of the fact that they don't now have adequate people to teach them some of the things that they ought to be learning in the university. Because I have children in private university, and some days my child will tell me, "Mommy, we don't have lectures on these days and that." I say, you see, our lecture only come on these days. I'm like,
So because part of the issue is that they're also serving.
They are also serving other places.
And that's what she's saying is very
and we're
true.
paying premium. So what does this do for the student's body?
And this is not just Unilag, huh?
Unilag is a case study. Imagine if we have to take the real statistics of every single university
or tertiary not just university.
Yes, tertiary institution we have in Nigeria. Don't you think that the numbers will be staggering?
Thank you so much. The consequence is not just on the students, it's on the nation as a whole. People ask, and what's the question is that, and I've been asking people, all of us who are sitting here, could you encourage your child with the current situation to become a teacher? How many of us? Because you look at it. But gone are those days when a teacher was the icon in the society. With their baggy trousers, with their big hair, with everything, briefcase. I could recollect that as Oshogbo in the past, there used to be a man who was Chief Omibodun. Chief Omibodun was a principal in a secondary school, and he was so respected that he was also at the same time the chairman of the local government.
Wow.
No, that is how much they respected teachers. They were the models, they were the heroes in the society. But because there is only one reason that accounts for this, what is the reason? It is our reward system. When your reward system only recognizes does not recognize merit, forget it. We have been able to, there's a need for us to identify where and what areas do we concentrate in terms of ensuring merit and good reward. I always tell this, we have done this research in the past, and we look at it. I did a report, and what was the focus? The focus was to look at how many Nigerian students actually opt to study education in colleges of education and the education faculties in the universities. And we realized that between 2011 and 2015, we sourced the data from JAM, and what we found was that between 2011 and 2015, average of 1.5 million students will sit UTME. Now, when they sit, what do they want to study? They actually wanted to study 80,000 out of 1.5 million who want to go to college of education. You have just about 200,000 that want to study education in the universities. Now, you have about 1.2 million plus who want to study medicine, engineering, all manner of such. Because it's not that they have the capacity, they don't have the capacity. But they know that, with this, it is certificate that people actually value. They don't value that merit, that skill that you have. So they will now struggle. So the people who could not meet up, those who opted to study teaching education, it's not that fell by the wayside. It's because they are the dregs. So they are those who do not have the quality. If you wonder, I've been told some times ago, and what was I told is that a lady who was staying with us, someone close to me, and I insisted, no, you must go to school. And my mom will say, no, you must go to school. Even if it is teaching, you must do. Because teaching has been relegated. They believe that even if you don't have brain for anything, you should be able to go into teaching. Forgetting the fact that teaching is the mother of all other professions. You can't have doctors without a teacher. You can't have lawyers without a teacher. You can't have anybody without a teacher. All of us who are sitting down here, we were taught by teachers. So if you don't take care of those teachers, how do you give them that kind of reward system that will encourage and it will make it very competitive? 40-50% of teachers today, they are passers-by. They do it as alternative job. It's just like policing. And so there is a kind of a misplaced priority in Nigeria. And you have children in classrooms today. It's either they say, I want to be a politician, I want to go into ICT, I want to go into, I want to do Yahoo. Yes, it's a big hustle now.
Yes,
I want to do Yahoo, and they have different categories of Yahoo. They say this one is Yahoo, this one is Yahoo Plus, this one is Yahoo Extra. So they have, that is how much we have sunk, how low we have gone as a society. If you go to different societies in the world, and we have always been saying it, go to Finland, for instance, before you can qualify to be a teacher, you have to do like this. Teaching is given the best of attention. Teaching, medicine, law, journalism, these are things that not just anybody can come up. You do your work here, you are professionals, but I'm sorry, the 50% of journalist population in Nigeria, they are quack. You understand? Because there is free entry and free exit. It is the same thing in teaching.
All commerce. So, Majid, before we go on a quick break, because I want us to highlight this before we move on to our next set of questions. You made mention of a lack of respect and a lack of dignity. What are the major drivers in investigating this and finding out a whole Unilag, one of Nigeria's most premier institutions, has lost almost 2,000 lecturers in 5 years? Why are they leaving? What are the core drivers?
Oh, like I said, we just explained most of these issues. You know, the interactions with the Vice Chancellor. We have a sector on premium time, on dev reporting, where our focus is actually relating with the key stakeholders to be able to have an insight into what they are actually feeling when it comes to development sector, whether it is health, whether it's education, it is environment, climate. We want to actually look into it deeply. And what we find is very embarrassing. It's embarrassing because if you look at, you know, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag already. There is another report that is coming. We are looking at not just the Naira and Kobo. If you convert what a professor is earning in Nigeria today, you will weep for this country. Their last review, their last salary review, that got their attention. And there is something very significant about that statistics that we provided. Between 2006 and 2007, we had just about 27,000 plus lecturers in the whole of this country.
You said?
Yes, 27,000 plus of lecturers. But that was in 2006, 2007.
Okay.
And the number of universities was just 100 plus. But by 2010, and the number of student population enrollment was over 1 million all over. So, but by 2010, 2011, we already got increased to about 30-something thousand. And the number of students decreased to about less than 1 million. Why? It was because that was the period 2009 agreement signed with ASU had significant impact on the commitment of the teachers, because they had increased, their salary got increased, their allowances were discussed, there was still hope, you know. So, but unfortunately, this was meant to be reviewed every 3 or 5 years. But it never got reviewed for so many years. That was why we had almost a year-long strike in 2020. That was why we continue to have strike by this academic staff and non-academic staff. So the conditions of work is very terrible.
Okay, let's hold on that. We have to take a quick time out. This is how we're opening this conversation, and it's going to take us into a different sphere when we come back. So stay with us. Higher education here in Nigeria is under the focus. We have job-buying lecturers and a booming education sector. What's happening? Stay with us. A very sobering conversation we're having today. Now, with the approval of 67 new institutions in less than a year, how does the government intend to maintain academic quality and integrity when existing universities can't even retain staff? That's a question I'm going to put to our guest, Mojeed Alabi. He's the team lead and editor-in-chief of Dev Reporting. But even before that, right before the break, we're looking at the things that cause staff, that cause lecturers, to leave the country. And really, unfortunately, it's no different than what we've been seeing, especially with doctors. A lot of the times, we focus our brain drain on the doctors. But as he said, teaching is the basis and foundation for every other profession. So, Majid, when we look at all of this, we're getting 67 new universities, I think the highest we've had in a long time. But where are the lecturers for this? Is there even a plan? When government, whether it's the presidency or the National Assembly, says we approve this university here, this one there, this tertiary, what is the plan for funding? What's the plan for staffing? Is there ever really a plan?
Yeah, it's a major challenge, and it's quite unfortunate that we have found ourselves where we are currently. Nigeria does not need additional universities or college of education or whatever.
Just tertiary.
Yeah, so there is something we call politics of education. In politics of education, we try as much as possible to see that, and it is a major problem with Nigeria as a country. It's about where do you come from? Who are you? This is for my home people. How do I get something to my home people? We have forgotten that if you take roads to your people, if you take water to your people, it helps them better than taking a university or college of education or whatever to your people without the facilities. Serious countries, when they want to start, they can be on planning for a university for 25, 30 years. Because it is not something you just wake up and just create. When, in fact, and that is why I also commend ASU. ASU is, you will see that there is no noise of strike again, because they have been emphasizing, not just ASU alone, even SANU, KONA, all of them. The argument has been, why are we turning universities to constituency projects? Every single individual in government is facilitating one tertiary institution to his own neighborhood. But do we need them? The existing infrastructure, the existing universities or college of education or whatever that we have, they are enough. Even before, okay, when Buhari was there, okay, during Jonathan, it didn't start with this administration. During President Jonathan, in a single day, he approved 9 universities. In a single day. A few weeks after, he approved another 3, making 12 that he approved. During Buhari's era, he approved between 2018 or thereabout and 2021, he approved about 30-something institutions, 9 universities. And you now ask, where are the facilities? Go to Federal University of Oyekiti. Where did they start? These are schools that will just start in one classroom. They will say, oh, we have started one university, Ndufe Aliko University in Ebonyi. You said we have one university in Kashere, we have one university in whatever. And every single individual that you want them, you now take one secondary school, no laboratory, nothing. You just push the students there, they don't have accommodation, they don't have where to stay. And that is why people talk about insecurity. I've always been saying it. When you look at the existing institutions that we have, let me take, for example, you have University of Ilorin. University of Ilorin has about 16,000 acres of land. Yes, there is no amount of, in fact, no universities today is not by land size, it's about infrastructure, it's about technology, it's about what. But if you have the existing ones, you are sure that if you want to expand the existing one, you can expand to as far as wherever you want. It is not that it must be with my people must have their own university, that's number one. So that is why you see that every senator, every rep member, there are 2 senators, rep members. A rep member in Lagos, he has a bill now that he wants to at least facilitate the establishment of another university in his home state of Kogi. So we have, we have a minister of whatever, in his home in Iragbeji, he has a university that has been established. In Nosho, a public university by the federal government. They will say University of, they are just creating, they say University of Agriculture, they say, must we have university? Should everybody even go to university?
So I wanted you to get there. So is this political strategy? What is it?
No, it is politics.
What is the idea behind, you're creating ghost universities? Uniloring has 16,000
hectares of land.
We already have enough existing universities. We hear that there are some universities who are not even equipped to be universities, but they have approval to be universities, and they borrow, they rent lecturers, or they pay for, I don't even know how they do it.
We must also, it's not just about the government. Each time they want to start universities, these government officials, and they will go to these professors too, to seek counseling advice. And I'm going to give a particular example. When Governor Amosu in Ogun State wanted to create turn Moshood Abiola Polytechnic to a university, they already had Taishola and University of Education, which was not being properly funded. They already had Olabisi Onabanjo University, not properly funded. In fact, they used to call Olabisi Onabanjo University
Tech Fund University. Tech Fund is a creation of the federal government based on the cancelling of ASU. It was because when ASU realized, when the lecturers themselves realized that this thing is not being properly funded, what do? We need solution. They came up with an idea of tax fund, that if you have this tax, you can be able to at least mandate mandate companies to commit certain to these things. And that was how they started with, I think, about 2%. Now it has been increased to 3%. Now what they were saying is that we need to fund these institutions, and it was meant to be UTF, university tertiary, university funding, whatever. But when they started, you know, government, politics came in, then they changed it to tertiary education trust fund. In fact, private school owners now, they are hugging and they are insisting that they should be beneficiaries. But you look at whether it is private, private universities started around 2000 when Obasanjo came on board. And the question I keep asking is this: if you have a sitting president, a sitting vice president, who approve licenses of universities for themselves, so what do you want in the public system? Obasanjo approved Best University of Technology for himself, and Atiku, the vice president, approved American University of Nigeria. The license was granted when they were sitting. So what do you expect that they are going to do?
Go back and share that story you wanted to share based on Catherine's points regarding even having universities set up and they're not even ready. But somehow they receive approval from AUC to launch and they end up being part and students end up paying fees and then finding out that there's no classroom, there's barely enough lecturers, there's no hostel. The students end up being the projects.
Yeah, you know, the problem is that we have individuals, not institutions in this country.
In the show.
Everything about university is supposed to be approved by NUC. But when you have individuals that are bigger than the system, NUC itself requires surgical operation. NUC as of today does not have a board. Yes. No governing board for more than 2 years now. Yes, no governing board for more than 2 years. In fact, after almost a year that they had an acting executive secretary, President Tinubu just appointed a substantive executive secretary recently. That's Professor Ribadu. We are waiting whether he will have the ball to be able to at least effect some changes. But what changes can you effect when the governing board is not in place? Now, the approval given to some private universities, and I'm going to mention this one openly again, that when you have executive secretary, whether acting or whatever, going to do resource verification in a university, you know what that means? Who do you bring the report back to? There's a particular university in Lagos today that got approval already. And what happened to this university? This university started as a business school. Even the business school it was supposed to run does not have what it takes. So what did they do? They went to bring a vice chancellor from, the guy is an American, but he was in Spain. So they brought him to Nigeria. You know, when they present an Oyibo as this thing, then they brought in a Nigerian who was based in Canada to be the dean. So those ones were expectant because they know that this man is a rich man, the owner is a rich man, he has network, he has whatever. They waited for over a year. Nothing. No lecturers. I could tell you until these people resigned last year, because they were forced to resign. They still had their cases that they are dragging. They were forced to resign because as of the time that they were trying to get the license, they were just they had less than 4 full lecturers. Yes.
From university.
And when they came for verification, I can tell you, they were able to get lecturers from the University of Lagos, from Covenant University, from Bago University, who had to go and appear on their,
lecturers.
You know, it's not limited to that now. You don't know if you start in Nigeria, you will see some secondary school, private secondary schools. If you are a core member, they use core member to present as if they are full teachers to get accreditation for UTME or whatever, or why?
We're going to hold the notes there. We need to go on a quick, let that digest that.
Yeah.
We're going on a quick break. We'll be back.
Yeah.
I said earlier, a very sober conversation on higher education here in Nigeria. And Mojeed Alabi is sharing. I'm going to go and do my digging after the show. I need to find out what university that is. But it's not funny. Mojeed, what we're seeing in front of us, what is staring us in the face in this abyss is the fact that we are not serious about higher education in Nigeria. Whether it's polytechnics, it's tertiary, it's universities, we're not serious. But beyond that, I need to ask, what are the checks and balances in place to ensure that the creation of these new universities match with transparent budgeting, credible staffing, real academic planning, and even the country's need? In all these universities we're establishing, is there one university for AI? Is there a university, a standard, real university of technology for ICT? We're establishing universities of agriculture, and I understand we're still quite an agrarian society, but are we looking to the future with any of these universities? And how do we check and balance this? ASU has been speaking for many, many years, and now I think people are starting to see a little bit more of ASU's side and the reality in all of this. But who holds government accountable when schools are built but they're never fully functional?
You know, Nigeria has a lot of, if it's about laws, if it's about regulations,
and we have beautiful
rules,
ones, some of the best in the world.
They are on the shelves. But, you know, when we get to work, we don't follow those due processes. And for instance, you see a lot of private universities that are established, and you keep asking questions. How did this one get through? How did this scale through? But like I always say, there is a need for, you know, when people come into power, they don't really, or they come into office, they don't really understand what their responsibilities should be. For instance, there is no way National Assembly will sit down somewhere and just pronounce and said, we have passed this bill for the creation of this university. Did it go through NUC as a body? If colleges of education is going to be established, it's supposed to go through the NCCE. They are experts. They should be able to. NUC is the one that is doing accreditation.
Accreditation,
courses accreditation,
yes.
University accreditation. Yeah. But we also talk about corruption in the system. A whole lot of people believe. Like I told you, when you have the Oga Patapata of an institution, who is going for resource verification, what does that tell you? So what are you picking?
Wow.
He's leaving. So when you bring the report, he select the people that he want to go.
Yeah.
How can me, as somebody, as the CEO, and I'm now the one going to be asking questions out there? So the questions that I'm asking, what happens? The next thing is that they call somebody and they say, oh, we are in your university now. You know what that means?
Yes.
I'm not saying anything. But what we are saying in essence is that it is not just about these institutions just being created. There are normal checks and balances.
Yes.
NUC is supposed to regulate. Even the discussions with workers when they are in problem is supposed to be by a president is not the one to be meeting the unions.
Yeah.
It should be the responsibility of a regulatory body. You have a regulatory body, you have the lawmakers, there must be harmonization. The only problem that we have is that we don't believe in these rules. You believe that, oh, we approve your appointment, so go and sit down when we are discussing. The labor ministry will come and say, oh, we are the one to speak to the workers if they have problem, this and that. I pity the people who have genuine intention to run education in the country. It is a major, major problem for them to the extent that even the government itself, because I want to believe, if President Tinubu should know, how many lecturers do we even have in Nigeria? Do we have statistics? No.
You know,
the last time we had was around 2010, 2011.
But Mojeed, you know, when we talk about these things on statistics, on data, it's very worrisome because these are education institutions where students go there to learn and become something. But these are still institutions that we cannot really put data to. All these things are speculations. You are now wondering that, okay, who wants to adequately engage this government? We know that the monumental problems have always been issue of underfunding. Now, federal universities are supposed to be funded by government, and private universities is supposed to be privately funded. But you see that some of these private universities, they don't even have adequate funding. So if federal government is supposed to look into the one for federal unis, what happens to private universities? Who is going to look into their own funding system? And the remuneration of these lecturers, plus the lack of research support. how do we continue this divide between the reality of education and policies being made? Who is going to help who?
No, there is just a simple response to that. Until we stop politicizing education. And I'm going to give you only one person did that, and he suffered it. And that is the former governor of Osun State, B.C. Akande. When the people of Osun State demanded during his first term that they needed a university in Osogbo, he told them that I'm sorry. He's a very frank person. And he said, why should we have another university? What is our revenue? What's our IGR? He looked at it as at that time, when he was governor of Osun State, there was OAU, there was Federal Polytechnic, Osun itself as a government had College of Education in Ilesha, had College of Education in Laorongo, had College of Technology, SRK, had School of Earth Technology, School of Cooperative, and they were still co-owner of Ladoke Akintola University of Ogbomoso, and the people were insisting we needed a university. Because of that, one of those reasons why the man was voted out. And they brought him, and former Governor Yilola came in and said, no problem, we'll give you university, if that is what you wanted. And do you know what he did? He started, it became a big case, because I raised so many fundamental issues. And what they did was that they created Osun State University. They now, like a business center, they now they created multiple campuses. Wow. 6 campuses at a go. They had one, so the politicians now started picking the campuses on their own. The governor took the one that will have enough in Okuku, that will have enough crowd to Okuku. That's the business development. They now, Osogbo that demanded university, they gave them science and the headquarters in Osogbo. The chief of staff then, who was from Ikire, was given one in Ikire, School of Arts. They knew that Ejigbo needed, there was a power voting block
just so that
they just shared it.
Okay.
And from the beginning, the lecturer in Osogbo may have to go and teach in Ikire. Unfortunately, they didn't have the resources to be going there. That was at the beginning.
We have to end the conversation.
Oh my God.
We have to end this conversation, and it's obvious that even the people are part of the problem. Why are we demanding universities for prestige when we're not sure of their functions? But let's wrap up.
Thank you so much, Mujid Arabi, for coming and discussing this. This is a menace in in our country, and I would say we're hoping that it's solvable, but it's gone on for so long that we can only hope against hope. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you everyone who joined in. Join us again tomorrow, same time, for our subsequent episodes, so that you can get more information like this. For myself and the ladies,
goodbye.